Fady Joudah, thank you very much for coming today all the way from Texas. We really appreciate it. And I would like to congratulate you on having your first collection of poems published by Yale University Press entitled The Earth in the Attic, and winning the Yale Series of Younger Poets Award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
The book is divided into 4 sections. The first of which deals with themes of violence and war. Can you talk a little bit about why you chose those themes and what experiences have led to you dealing with those themes?
Yeah, the collection is 4 sections and really 3 themes, as you said. I used my reality of being a physician, serving a population that is suffering from war with Doctors Without Borders, as a sort of a major stage or setup for my life experiences as a physician, a human being, a Palestinian, son of Palestinians. And so I don't think it was anything that I sought, but it was just sort of what happened to me. As they say, life happens to you, so to speak. And and I am a bit ambivalent about always bringing the word war up in relation to my poetry or politics, because in an unfortunate sense, it is inevitable that many would frame or fixate, my identity as a poet to war and to politics, which has some sort of reverberations about the Arab background and the Palestinian and so forth. And I think that I would always like to just see these things and these poems that I've written from the standpoint of the humane, and not necessarily from the standpoint that might bring up the echoes of violence per se.
I know that your work has been characterized in this collection as both universal and quotidian at the same time, which is kind of what you're speaking to now. Can you talk a little bit more about how you see your work relating to your specific experiences, as you've said, relating to an Arab background? You sort of had to justify that or something. So can you talk a little bit about that idea of universal and specific?
I think the universal and the private are main themes in poetry across the board. And for me, the universal, at least one way to approach the universal in poetry is to maneuver with time, the concept of time in poem, in language. How does one transfer or transform time to make the moment seem mythic or legendary or illusory, fiction, and give it a sense of timelessness, if you will, or at least the illusion of timelessness. So that creates a universal sense in the manner of bringing these fixities in the human mind on the page, whatever these fixities may be and argumentative as they may be. And the private is simply saying where you are, who you are, or who you imagine yourself to be, or who you deceive yourself with being, and speaking of mother, father, and cup of tea, and apples and oranges, and basic things, and you mix the two, and you have the universal and the private.
So speaking of that relationship, how do you see your relationship to the contemporary poetry milieu in English and in Arabic, and sort of what are your influences, and how do you relate to those?
I mean, this is quite vast, but you know, Arabic for me is my first teacher about my first teacher of lyric. You know, I've learned my lyric poem from Arabic poetry, and I was delighted to find that there is a particular, at least to imagine, a particular unity in the human mind in the center of language, where that lyric poetry in Arabic is actually transferable across the human cadence, if you will, the linguistic cadence in the mind. And in English, I've actually learned that English poetry, I've learned, the one thing that I've learned first from it is the narrative thrust. So how to mix the narrative thrust with the lyric impulse.
So why did you choose to write your poetry in English? Or do you also write in Arabic?
I did write in Arabic, and there is you know, when I was a teenager, and there's also a lot of what goes into my English poetry that is really an automatic translation from the Arabic, or sometimes a conscious translation from the Arabic, but obviously the bulk of it is just in English and predominantly and first and foremost. But I think it's because you know, I came to the United States. I returned back when I was 18, and you know, my formative language, my higher education, if you will, happened in English, and my entire surrounding is English, American. The people I speak with, my love stories, you know, my patients, my friends, and I you know, I just seemed a natural human response to me. I'm not very hung up on the one's identity through the language that they write in. I think language is not to be a banner, but sort of you know, lends itself to you know, to identity. It's you know, identity is not defined by the language in which one speaks.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of translation, I know that you also recently translated Mahmoud Darwish's most recent work into a compilation entitled The Butterfly's Burden, which won the Saif Ghobash Banipal Prize for Arabic translation and was shortlisted for the PEN Award. Can you tell me a little bit about the process of translating Darwish's work, how you came to know him, how you came to translate his work, and if these ideas of translating the lyric and cadence played a part in that?
Well, you cannot translate you know, just cadence without meaning. Meaning has to be sustained. But I do think that you know, and a lot of the cadence is lost or is different, but I'm not, you know, one is, in translation, I'm not concerned about an exact replica. I'm concerned about a transference of sensibility, and you know, and that's just an attempt on my part. I do think that syntax is the key to solving the riddles of poetry, at least in Darwish's case, and you know, in contemporary poetry. And you know, I came to translating Darwish obviously because he's an icon in the contemporary Arab poetry and Arabic language.
Well, it's a wonderful, wonderful book, and thank you very much for coming today. We really appreciate it.